Albert, I heard that your dad was instrumental in helping build the yacht club down there. Is that
Yes.
true?
When he lived in Cienfuegos, he was a contractor, and fortunately, he built the first yacht club in Havana, in Cienfuegos, Cuba.
Later, your whole family moved back to the U.S. or
No, my mother, because she was an orphan, the minister of the Presbyterian Church in Havana arranged to have her sent to the United States at the age of 11 years, and she attended a Presbyterian school in Asheville, North Carolina. After that, the church paid for her college education, and she graduated from the University of North Carolina. Then she returned as a missionary back to Cuba, and for 3 years taught in the Presbyterian Missionary in Santa Spiritus, Cuba.
where did you go to grade school and high school?
I attended Minnie Holman Elementary School in Birmingham, Alabama. After that, I attended the Woodlawn High School, which was quite a large school. We had over 2,000 students in the school.
Albert, can you remember your first job out of high school?
Fortunately, while I was in high school, I got a job as an engraving boy for the Birmingham News in the engraving department. And every school day, I would catch a streetcar from Woodlawn High School and ride downtown to Birmingham News. And I would work until 8 or 9 o'clock in the evening, doing whatever I was told to do.
So, at some point you started your college education. What was that like, and when did you decide that architecture was your main interest in life?
My first college experience was at the University of Alabama. We had returned from Cuba, and while in Cuba, my cousin, who was a chemical engineer, I was encouraged to become a chemical engineer, not ever having any courses in chemistry or anything of that sort. And so as the semesters went by, my grades went down. And one day I walked home to my room at the dormitory, and I laid on the bunk and I told myself I was going nowhere. And as I lay there, all of a sudden I decided I wanted to be an architect. So at the end of the term, I gathered all my possessions. In the meantime, I had written to the architectural school at Auburn University, and I gathered all my possessions. I got on the Greyhound bus and rode across the state of Alabama to Auburn.
Albert, you told me that Auburn was a special, even a magical time in your life. What was that like for you?
Those were some of the happiest years of my life. I fitted right square into the program. It was a wonderful experience. I had a tremendous professor. I majored in design. There were two options, and I selected design as my option. And my professor was a German professor, and his knowledge of design, everything I learned about designing, I learned from him.
Can you tell me, or give me an example of one of the more interesting architectural, projects that you worked on?
I was selected by the First Presbyterian Church in Tallahassee, Florida. I was living there at that time, and they needed to restore the church. It had some structural problems, and as a result, I learned the history of the church. I learned the Presbyterian theology, which was exceedingly important. And because of my ability to be able to sew together the traditional design, which was At that time, the church was built in 1835. It was Greek revival architecture.
I might just want to point out to the listeners that you and I looked up that church on the internet and were able to see pictures of it, and you were able to explain to me in some detail what you did for the church. I think I recall that at one point you had to climb up into the church bell tower to do measurements and things, and you were hanging out a window or something like that. It sounds like a really rewarding project, and
it was. The minister of the church was a tremendous supporter of my efforts, and he required me to study the theology of Presbyterianism, and I was thrilled to death to be able to learn what the form of the church should be in order to meet the mandates of the Presbyterian theology. And it was a thrill for me to have something of that type of information to be able to do a better job for the church.
Albert, were you ever married?
Yes, I was married to a Swedish woman. She was a school teacher in Sweden, and she had come to Tallahassee, Florida for a teacher's exchange program. And a friend of mine who always tried to get me married off to some woman said this was an opportunity for me to meet this woman. Her name was Ganilla Rosbo, and we got married, and we were married for 28 years.
Did you two have any children?
Yes, we had one daughter. Her name is Anna Jennifer Trull. She was a wonderful little baby. She was born a few days before Christmas in 1970, and I can remember every moment of her birth. It was a thrill. And her mother flew from Sweden to Tallahassee to help her to take care of the baby, as well as my mother came up from Miami, Florida, and also assisted in caring for the baby.
Where's your daughter living now?
My daughter now lives in Madison, Wisconsin. She felt that she could help me if I ever got ill again. I did have cancer, and I had an operation, and she felt that a family member should be nearby to help.
So your daughter's living in Madison, Wisconsin, and you moved to Madison, Wisconsin. That's where you are today, right?
Yes.